Hey, welcome back to Two Super Guys Trade Stocks. I'm Dylan.
And I'm Vinny.
And today we're going to talk about how new news that the FTC may try to block the Activision deal. And I'm going to tell you why it's probably not going to happen because Sony has been bullying people in this space and using unfair advantages for years, and they're about to get a taste of their own medicine. Let's get started.
Two stupid guys trade stocks.
Now, Vinny has no idea about this space at all. So this is going to be kind of interesting because he's not a gamer. He doesn't do any of this thing. So we're going to get his opinion after learning all this new information that he probably doesn't know unless you had been playing games for years. And if you are a Xboxer or a Switch or a PlayStation, also want your input. I despise Sony. I think they are literally the Empire in Star Wars. They are horrible. Now, there's a caveat. I'm not saying the video games, the IPs that Sony has, some amazing video games. Last of Us is ridiculous. I'm saying Sony themselves. All right?
Okay.
Okay?
So it's business practices. I get it.
Business practices. You're gonna learn something here, Vinny. And then you're gonna give your review on if this is gonna happen at the end of this. All right?
Ooh, okay.
All right. So this is the claim, right? The Microsoft bid for Activision likely to be blocked by the FTC. This report just came out. I think it's clickbaity, in my opinion. The argument against the acquisition is that Activision will give Microsoft an unfair advantage in the video game space. The cost of the acquisition is almost $70 billion. We're chilling at $74 a share. It would be $95 a share. Okay?
Okay.
Why is this unfair? Because that's what I don't understand for the life of me. So, they're being a little bit of a bitch. All right? So, currently...
Making great TV, though, okay?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just this aspect. Xbox is ranked third in the industry. Okay? Sony's first. The basis of the argument is that Call of Duty is too valuable and Sony would have a disadvantage not having access to the game. Okay? Microsoft has already pledged to continue making Call of Duty available to Sony and even recently made an offer to give them rights for the next decade. So already this argument is completely just ridiculous to me. On top of that, you could just make a new IP that's a top-selling game. Like, I don't know, Battlefield, Halo, Apex, PUBG. These are all new games that all of a sudden started making a butt-ton of money, right? I mean, Halo's an old game, but, Apex, relatively new. PUBG, also relatively new. You could just invest and make new products instead of crying.
So this video is actually to announce two stupid guys actually modern Battlefield game. That's actually what we're doing with this video.
You couldn't even get the title right. You know what I mean? That's how little you know about this. All right. So, do they have a point that Activision is this valuable? Yes. Modern Warfare 2 surpassed 1 billion in sales in the first 10 days. Okay? They release this game every year. In fact, this is called Modern Warfare 2, which was released in 2012, I think, or something. And they're just re-releasing it, making a slightly new twist. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm also not saying I don't play it, because I do. So I'm still buying it. But this gets a lot worse. Let's get into the business practices of Sony. As I said, they're a bitch. Microsoft has tried to call a truce multiple times for crossplay. Are you familiar with crossplay?
No.
Okay.
Nothing with crossplay.
If I have an Xbox and I play a game, Call of Duty, whatever, and you have a PlayStation, before, Xbox is like, why don't we just make it so everyone can play with each other? That seems fair, right?
Okay.
Sony's like, nah, get out of here. We have more players than you. You're not allowed to play with us. Now, Call of Duty in the past has skirted around this rule and paid for it I'll show you that too by having an Activision ID so you can still play. But there's multiple games, Minecraft, Fortnite. People want to be able to play with each other, and they are unable to.
Okay.
Xbox, for literally 7 years, has been saying, let's do crossplay. This is inhibiting the gaming community growing. And Sony says, it's not safe. That's their go-to argument.
Wow.
Okay?
This little Apple iMessage versus Google Android kind of scenario here, huh?
Gets worse. Gets worse. So like I said, there are ways around it. Okay? Now, Sony, in the past, has used financial incentives to block game developers from having crossplay. If games wanted crossplay, Sony implemented a system which forced publishers to pay Sony a royalty whenever PlayStation players contributed more than a certain baseline percentage of people playing. Epic Games' Tom Sweeney testified they're the only company that does this out of all companies that they work with.
Huh. Interesting.
Outrageous. Okay? Does it get worse? Of course it does. Why wouldn't it? So I'm not worried, but there are even more unconfirmed reports from multiple sources that Sony blocks games from Game Pass and new content from Game Pass. What's Game Pass? Right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was asking.
Right. Makes sense. So Microsoft has this thing where instead of buying $60 for a game, you can just pay $10 a month and get all Xbox games and then whatever other games go on to Game Pass. It's a subscription service. It's a great model. It saves people a lot of money.
But for video games. Okay.
Right. I mean, if you buy, Halo, it's $60, or just do the Game Pass and you're in, right? It's a pretty solid model. Sony, unconfirmed, has been badgering developers to not release stuff on Game Pass or they will pull their content from Sony, hurting their own sales.
Wow.
These are the people that are saying this acquisition is not fair.
Yes.
That is
not fair.
Utter bullshit. One, Xbox is third. Okay? It's not like they're second. No, they're still behind Switch and Nintendo. It's not even close. And honestly, it's just getting worse. There's no reason when Microsoft has been trying to play ball for 7 years that they should not be able to make this acquisition. It does not make any sense in my brain. Sony has been, frankly, an asshole for a very long time and has been using their money and their weight to slow the gaming industry down from being more joined or being more immersive. I think it's a no-brainer. Now, as someone who knows nothing about this prior to this video, give me your thoughts.
Interesting. So my first reaction is, wow, I didn't realize Sony was such a dick in like the gaming community. My big TV is Sony, and I absolutely love it. And they are like the king or cat's meow of big TVs these days. Okay, in case you didn't know that. Nope, Sony. Anyways, but I think the question really comes down to, I get what you're saying from like a morally right standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
The question is whether or not the FTC gives a crap about morals, and I don't think they do. Unfortunately, right now there's such an anti-big tech sentiment that they don't care. They try to block big tech from doing anything possible in the United States, at least. That's kind of what you're seeing going on. That's why Microsoft is not. I mean, Meta's not able to make any acquisitions right now because everything gets blocked. Little couple $100 million acquisitions get blocked by the FTC for them right now.
So I agree with you in that aspect. However, the basis of the argument on why it can't be blocked is solely Call of Duty. It makes them too powerful. And Microsoft already pledged, we'll keep it crossplay, no worries. So what's the argument? The whole basis of the blocking the lawsuit from Sony's perspective was Call of Duty makes too much money, which so stupid. Create a different game. Xbox or Apex it wasn't even a thing like 2 years ago. That game's awesome. Just make a new game. It's not just you have billions and billions of dollars. It's absolutely absurd. But for that one argument, it doesn't stand on its own. It doesn't, because they're literally saying, well, hey, how about we just make a contract for 10 years, which they never did for anybody else, by the way. Well,
I mean, I will say that you make producing a blockbuster game sound pretty easy. So this is why the joke about us producing one. But the whether or not it stands, I think, is more about political climate than it is about the moral righteousness of the actual acquisition. That's really what it's going to come down to, is whether or not the FTC is in a good mood.
all right. So for you got to vote. Does it happen? Does it not happen?
Buffett believes in it, so I'm with Buffett. I'll say it happens.
Okay. If Buffett sold his shares tomorrow, would you switch your mind? Would you change your mind?
Well, the other thing is that Activision Blizzard was a relatively reasonable valuation, some people were arguing, before this whole thing happened. The original kind of transaction completion date was what, June 2023? Was that what they targeted? Yep. So like a little bit over 6 months from now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that gets pushed back, but the deal ultimately does go through.
All right. I don't even think it gets pushed back. I don't. This seems like a no-brainer to me, but
okay.
I don't know. All right, guys. Once again, any Sony people who are saying I'm hating on PlayStation, I am, but not the games. I want to make that very clear. There's gonna be comments about that. Like, have you played Horizon? Yeah, it's awesome. All right. Have a good one.
See you guys in the next one.